Another way to create objects in 3ds Max is to use curves. Now, curves are basically Bezier type curves, but there are a number of different ways to work with them. So let's go ahead and start off by just drawing and doing some simple edits on a curve. I'm going to go into my front viewport here. And in the Create panel, we're going to go over to Shapes. Now, there are a number of different ways to draw shapes, or splines as they're known in 3ds Max. We can draw them freehand using the line tool, or we have a number of preset shapes that we can use, such as rectangles, circles, ellipses, and so on. Now, we're going to work with just the line tool. Now, when I do that, it brings up this creation cursor here, and all I have to do is left-click to lay down a vertice. Now, the first vertice I lay down is important for modeling, so it's a good idea to place your first vertex in the proper place. Now, I'm going to place this at the origin, and notice how as I pull this out, it allows me to draw a line. Now, if I hold down the Shift key, it will lock that line to the grid. So if you want to draw straight lines, hold down the Shift key. And I'm going to go ahead and left-click again. Now, if you left-click and drag, notice how it becomes a curved shape. So I'm going to go ahead and make kind of a curved corner here. Lay down another point. Now, if I just click, it becomes a corner. So remember, if I click by itself, it becomes a corner. Click and drag, it becomes a curve. So I'm going to go ahead and just make this shape here that's kind of almost like the inside of a bowl. And again, I'm going to hold down the Shift key to make that like that. So now once we have this, we can go through and edit it. So if I go into my Modify panel here, you'll see that I have a line, and I can go into this and just select my vertices and use my Move tool to move those around. Now notice how these ones with the curves on them are actually Beziers, which means they have this handle here. So I can actually grab this handle and move it to change the type of curve. So we actually have two different types of vertices. And actually, in 3ds Max, we actually have a number of different types. So let's go through those. Now, we can change a vertex by selecting it and right-clicking over it. And over here in the top left corner, you'll see a number of objects here. We have Bezier Corner, Bezier, Corner, Smooth, and Reset Tangents. So right now, the one I'm clicking on is a Bezier. Let's go ahead and change it to a corner. And when I do, notice how, well, it becomes a corner. It becomes basically two straight lines that meet each other. If we right-click above this again, we can turn this into smooth. Now, what smooth does is it basically just creates an interpolation between the 2 points. And so it's not like a Bezier where you can control the curvature. So this is a smooth. It's basically a fixed curvature. With a Bezier such as this, you can actually change the angle and length of that to control the curvature. But you can't do that with just a smooth. Now, in some ways, this can actually be more preferential because it's just an easy way to create a very smooth surface. Now, if I right-click above this again, we also notice we have what's called a Bezier corner. Now, if I left-click on that, notice how it gives me Beziers, but if I select one of these, it doesn't extend the curvature all the way through. So I have curves on either side, but it's actually a corner in the middle. So that's what a Bezier corner is. It's basically a Bezier curve that you can split or break the tangent. Now for this one, I'm actually going to use a smooth here. Now once you have this in place, you can go out of vertex edit mode, and you have a curve in 3ds Max. And you can see here in the 3D viewport how I have that curve. Now this curve by itself can be used for a number of things, such as animation paths, but it can also be used as a modeling tool. So probably one of the more typical ways of using these types of curves is to use what's called a lathe or a revolve. So if we go into modifiers, Under Patch Spline Editing, you'll see that we have a number of these. So if I select this, go into Modifiers, Patch Editing, you'll see that I have one here called Lathe. When I select that and go back into my perspective view, notice how the lathe shows up. Now this lathe itself is just a modifier. We can turn this on or off, and then we can modify how this works. So if we do this minimum, center, or max, it determines the center of that lathe. So I'm going to put this on minimum for this particular one, and you can see how we very easily created a bowl. Now if I click off of this and go back into, say, my line, I can actually re-edit this line here and then go back into my lathe, and you can see how that changes. So as you can see, creating splines in 3ds Max is as simple as using the line tool or any one of the standard shapes. Now once we've created a spline, we can go back and edit it and change the tangency to either corner, smooth, Bezier, or Bezier corner. And these curves can then be used as the building blocks of geometry.